As a reckless heir to a fortune, I spent money like water. It wasn't unusual for me to blow $500,000 in a single night. My mom was a young model back in the day, and my dad owned a gold mine. He was a philanderer, and she was money hungry. It was a match made in heaven, as they quickly fell for each other, rushed into marriage, and gave birth to the handsome and wealthy me. But when my mom found out I was dating a young model, she was furious and cut off my credit card. She said, "So young and already following in your father's footsteps, chasing after models. Do you think I don't know what's on those models' minds? Useless at everything except spending money. One gold digger in this family is enough. Listen, you should learn from me and find a rich woman to settle down with." After much contemplation, I typed on my phone, "Victoria, let's break up. My mom wants me to find a wealthy woman." I humbly handed my phone to my mom for inspection. "Mom, is this okay?" She nodded in approval and added another zero to my credit card limit. I forced a smile, though I felt a tinge of sadness. After all, Victoria didn't really like me. She was just after my money. I had met Victoria, a young model, at a bar. When I first saw her, she seemed to be coerced into drinking with a group of people surrounding her, looking distressed. The manager was offering her a drink, and in the flickering lights I saw the defiance and reluctance on her delicate face. How dare they try to harass such a beautiful woman in the dark? Fueled by alcohol, I ignored my roommate's attempts to stop me and charged over, pulling out my black card with confidence. "Stop it, don't force her. This woman, she's with me." The world went silent. Victoria looked over, her eyes long and narrow, lips a deep red, with a hint of surprise. Her neckline slightly open, revealing a graceful neck and a hint of collarbone. I swallowed hard. Maybe my assertive and yesterday I made an impulsive purchase. "Can I get a refund?" Usually chatty, Mr. Johnson stayed silent, his expression peculiar, eyes darting towards the sofa. Seeing his troubled look, I reluctantly said, "Forget it. If I can't get a refund, so be it. Running a store isn't easy." Pausing, I asked, "By the way, is the person I subscribe to here?" I looked around and a soft cough caught my attention. Turning my head, I saw a woman sitting on the sofa. With a light behind her, her features weren't clear. She said, "Sin, come here." Holy cow, no one has ever called me by that name, and how does she even know it? I found myself walking over. As I got closer, her features became clearer, exquisite eyebrows, a delicate nose and crimson lips, each detail perfect and captivating. Before I knew it, I was standing in front of her. Damn it, I'm such a pushover. I swiped my card, and as the client, I was being led by this young lady. But, looking at her bright and beautiful face, I thought to myself, it was worth it. She asked, "Sin, do you want a refund?" Victoria, who had appeared distant and aloof, now wore a pitiful expression, her misty eyes looking at me, making my heart soften. I quickly waved my hand. No, who told you that?" I thought to myself, she's a professional, who can resist this? "I certainly can't." With a slightly choked voice, she said, "If you return me, I can't stay here anymore." Victoria lowered her head just in time and asked, "Did I do something wrong?" Mr. Johnson murmured softly, "What a cunning woman," but didn't show it, knowing he couldn't afford to offend her. Sincere said to Victoria, "No, you've done well." His voice was clear and gentle, yet powerful, each word striking Victoria's heart. She thought to herself, "Sin is so kind." I sighed, wanting to pat her head, but refrained. Poor thing, she probably doesn't get much after the boss takes a cut. I asked slowly, "How old are you this year?" She looked around my age. She replied, "I'm 20. A sadness washed over me. She's a year younger than me, and yet she's reduced to serving drinks. I imagined her tragic life, a gambling father, a sick mother, a brother in school, and her broken self. If I don't help her, who will? A sense of justice rose within me. I could live lean for a month, but help her escape a lifetime of hardship. It's our duty to save a girl in distress. I said, "Don't worry, I'm not like other customers. Just make me happy." I was speechless. It sounded about right. I couldn't care less. I said, "Let's add each other on social media." I suddenly remembered and asked, By the way, what's your name? Victoria pouted and asked. Sin, you don't even know my name? You little heartless thing. I was puzzled. Why would I know? I wanted to ask how you knew mine. She said, you, never mind. She looked at me with an aggrieved expression as if she had suffered a great wrong. She said, remember, my name is Victoria. I replied, got it, quickly noting down Victoria subscription. I asked, are you a college student? She replied, no. Just as I suspected, she couldn't afford college. What a tragedy. I decided to set her on the right path, rescuing a girl who had gone astray. She said, you've paid, I'm yours now. You have to take responsibility, Sin. Victoria at some point had changed her position, leaning on the sofa, eyes misty as she moved closer to me, her warm breath brushing against my ear. Turning my head, I could see her innocent eyes staring at me. Who could resist that? I blurted out, I'll take responsibility, definitely. I'll definitely help her get into an adult education program, helping her succeed. Only then did she seem satisfied. Not wanting my parents to know I was involved with a young model, I lied about studying and moved into an apartment near school, with Victoria, of course. She said she had nowhere to stay, so I took her in. My living expenses for the month were gone, so I occasionally went home to borrow groceries, cleaning out the gift cards. For some reason, every time I returned with a full load, it felt like returning from a hunt. Excitedly, I showed Victoria my loot. Her eyes sparkled as she looked at me, then turned to the kitchen with the groceries. I sipped on a drink, watching the woman in light clothes wearing an apron, cooking for me in the kitchen. It was a delightful sight, bringing a sense of satisfaction. No wonder my dad chose my mom. Coming home to this every day after work, who wouldn't be happy? My mom sent a message, kid, we have guests tonight, come home for dinner. But the next moment, Victoria hugged me from behind, nuzzling her head against my back like a clingy kitten. She softly said, Sincere, shall we study together tonight? I was speechless. It was just studying. Why did she sound so suggestive? I turned around, gently pushing her away. No, I can't. My mom asked me to come home today. I'll come back tomorrow. Seeing her looking so pitiful, I sent her a copy of Critique of Pure Reason via chat and said, study it yourself first, I'll quiz you tomorrow. She replied, looking a bit aggrieved. All right. Victoria lowered her head, watching me as I walked down the stairs, got into my car, and drove away. When I got home, I found that Uncle Yu and his daughter, Emma, were visiting. Emma had just returned from a study abroad program. She's 2 months younger than me, and we've grown up together. I've always seen her as my little sister. Not long ago, I congratulated her and James on finally getting together. I've known she's had a crush on James since we were kids. The purpose of this dinner with our parents was obvious. Emma and I ate awkwardly. I focused on my food, but I couldn't stop thinking about Victoria. What was she doing? Was she being picky and not eating her carrots? Was she thinking about me? Throughout the meal, all I did was smile foolishly. After our guests left, my mom looked at me with concern and asked, Sincere, is something on your mind? You seem distracted. My dad chimed in, yeah, don't let studying make you lose your mind. You need to balance it out. I was speechless. I said, it's nothing, really. I'm just tired from studying. I'm going back to my apartment. I won't be staying here tonight. I left in a hurry, eager to surprise Victoria. With the month coming to an end, I decided to withdraw my savings for a renewal and ask if old John could give me a discount. She wouldn't have to work at the bar anymore. As night fell, the neon lights of the city flickered under my hurried steps. My mood was as bright as the night lights. I made a special trip to Victoria's favorite cake shop nearby and bought her favorite matcha cake. As I turned the corner, my steps came to an abrupt halt, and my smile froze. My gaze locked onto the couple embracing in front of me. It was Victoria and another man. Though it had only been a month, she was etched into my heart. I couldn't be mistaken. A wave of bitterness engulfed me. My lips parted as if to speak, but no sound came. I turned away, my steps stumbling, each one like a weight on my heart. It's okay, Sincere. She was just a model you were sponsoring. With the month ending tomorrow, it's normal for her to look for someone else. I kept telling myself, trying to convince myself. I didn't look back or notice the figure running after me. I sent a message, "Victoria, the month ends tomorrow. You can go. I'm replacing you with another model. I don't need you anymore." Pride forced me to type those false words. I'd rather it be me abandoning her than her abandoning me first. I didn't even want to ask what her relationship was with that man. Without a third-person perspective, I couldn't be sure if I mattered to her. The lights around seemed to lose their color, becoming dim. Shadows stretched on the ground, appearing lonely and desolate. More than 2 weeks passed since I sent the breakup message to Victoria. She didn't reply or show up at my apartment again. All traces vanished as if that time was just a bizarre dream. When I saw her again, it was unexpectedly at C University. Emma and I were exchanging greetings on campus. She asked, sincere, "Why do you look so much thinner than last time?" She looked at me with concern. I forced a smile and replied, "Maybe it's the weather affecting my appetite." The truth was, I didn't know either. She said, "If something's bothering you, you can talk to James and me. We care about you." I laughed. Okay, enough about me. Let's go. James is waiting for us. Emma nodded. "Yeah, he's been talking about you ever since he was abroad. After so many years, I wonder if he still recognizes his little sidekick," she teased. As we were about to leave, a figure blocked our path. It was Victoria. My smile faded slowly, replaced by a complex expression. She looked even more stunning than before. Life's unfair. I felt a pang of loneliness, realizing I was the only one who took those days seriously, tossing and turning every night. But then again, she was the star attraction. There must be plenty willing to sponsor her for a year. How could she remember someone who only sponsored her for a month? She sneered. "So it's her, huh? Not much quality, I see." Victoria glanced Emma up and down, with a barely noticeable hint of jealousy in her voice. I was speechless. Why was she insulting people for no reason? I replied, "What's it to you? My sister Emmy is doing just fine." I didn't say much more to her, just wanting her to leave quickly. She said indignantly, "Sincere, you're really fickle." Her eyelashes fluttered, fragile and helpless, her smile not reaching her eyes. She turned away without hesitation. I clenched my fists, feeling a sting in my heart. Emma asked with concern, "Bro, what's wrong? You seem off." "Who was that?" I forced a smile and said, "No one, just a classmate." As a kid watching TV, I always thought so many misunderstandings between characters were unnecessary. When faced with problems, they couldn't seem to explain or just stayed silent. Back then I used to think, just explain it quickly. Why are you dawdling? We have mouths to solve problems, don't we? Later I realized some words are really hard to say. Now that I'm in the situation, I found myself even more silent than they were. I said, "Emma, you should go find James. I'm not feeling well," she said. "Sincere, are you all right?" she asked. I shook my head. Ever since I saw Victoria, my heart has been restless. Walking along the college path, I unconsciously ended up at the library. I used to love taking Victoria to the library, forcing her to learn adult education material. She never resisted, only smilingly asked for a reward each time she answered a question correctly. Before long, we both became breathless. I reminisced all the way until Victoria stopped me on the path beside the library. I sighed. "Victoria, I've made myself clear." She looked down, twisting her fingers, and after a while she shyly asked, "Can you support 2 of us? We could keep it underground." Her cheeks flushed red, speaking with extreme difficulty as if she had summoned great courage. Silence. I was thunderstruck, speechless. Was she trying to earn 2 salaries in a month? Victoria was too greedy. And what did she mean by underground? Did she want me to secretly support her? So, that person was her main sponsor, and she came to me for a side gig, right? Clearly, I was her first sponsor. I angrily retorted, "Victoria, earning 1 is not enough, and you still want 2? She replied in grievance, "I didn't take anyone else's money." Trembling, I pointed at her, heartbroken. So you let others have it for free and then come to earn from me? That's outrageous. Victoria caught the expression in my eyes. Her face darkened and she trembled. That's not what I meant. I just want to stay by your side. I know, Sin. I was being delusional. She wiped her eyes and was about to turn away when I grabbed her. Gritting my teeth, I said, "Don't go, I agree." I turned my head away, pretending not to care. I truly lost face. I extended Victoria's support for another month. This time old Will was quite decent, even giving me a 20% discount. I moved back to the apartment near the school. This time it was even more disgraceful than last. Not only was I supporting a young model, but I was doing it behind her main sponsor's back. What a downfall, Sincere. I despised myself while feeling anxious inside. Sincere, there's a beautiful girl in the hallway. Jimmy excitedly nudged me. I looked outside the classroom to see a tall girl with striking features, wearing a beret and a white high-waisted pleated skirt, standing by the window with a mask on. I muttered, "Where did this little enchantress come from?" Our eyes met, and in a split second, I realized, oh no, she's from my place. Seeing me looking over, she lowered her eyes. During the break, I rushed out eagerly. "You're waiting for me to finish class, Victoria? It's not over yet. Do you want to come in and listen with me?" I wrapped my arm around her shoulder, about to lead her in. She smiled lightly but seemed to recall something, glancing around cautiously, avoiding people's eyes. Nervously, she said, "Sincere, let's talk somewhere else." I led her to an empty classroom nearby and closed the door. Victoria removed her hat and mask, asking, "Isn't that girl going to come looking for you?" "Who?" I asked, puzzled. "Who else could it be but her?" "The girl who was with you yesterday," she said. I suddenly understood she meant Emma. James did mention coming to find me with her today for fun, but I didn't want to disturb their time together. So I said, "She has other things to do, I don't want to disturb them." A hint of joy flashed in Victoria's eyes. "She doesn't come to wait for you. I'll come every day after school from now on," she said. Thinking of Jimmy and other classmates asking who she was, I might not have a good answer. So I asked, "By what identity are you coming to find me?" Her brows knit tightly, and her lips were pale from being bitten. "Do you really want me to say it?" she asked. I was puzzled. "What's so hard to say?" She looked down. "Your supported young model." Victoria's face was flushed with embarrassment. I was speechless. If this got out, I'd be expelled immediately. So I said, "Then maybe you shouldn't come." Victoria thought with grievance, "Don't I want to move up? I also want to come as a girlfriend." But then she took a deep breath, trying to explain her true thoughts. Nervously, she said, "Sincere, that's not what I meant. I just don't want you to feel pressured." I looked up at her, a hint of confusion in my eyes. "Pressure? What pressure?" I asked. She bit her lip. After all, society isn't that open now. Victoria pursed her lips, seemingly searching for suitable words. "I mean, our relationship isn't exactly respectable," she said. I was stunned, not expecting Victoria to think this way. I was speechless. "I get it. You're afraid your other sponsor will find out, right? No wonder you dress like a thief. If you think it's so disgraceful, don't come to see me." Victoria was shocked, a bit aggrieved. "Sincere, there's no one else. I've always been just your young model." I asked, "And who was the man hugging you that night?" She said, "That was my dad. He came to see me that day." She showed me the chat records, with messages from her dad asking how things were going with me, and even found photos of her with her dad. I was speechless. Victoria tiptoed up cautiously and kissed me, speaking with grievance. "I wanted to explain, but by then you had already messaged me saying you didn't want me." The knots in my heart loosened, and I felt bright and hopeful. But then I thought, wait a minute, why did she feel ashamed? Was it because of her status as a young model? I pondered. I didn't think there was anything wrong with that. She had just strayed off the path a bit. I said, "Victoria," with a soft yet firm voice, "there's nothing shameful about our relationship. I enjoy being with you, and that's enough." She asked, "Sincere, do you really think so?" I nodded and said, "Of course." We don't need to explain our relationship to anyone. Our feelings are our own business." She nodded solemnly and said, "All right, Sincere, I get it. We can be secretly happy. I'll make sure she doesn't find out." I nodded repeatedly. Yes, Emmy must not know about this. It really has to be kept a secret. If she finds out and tells my parents, my card will be frozen again. She asked, "Do you care so much about her feelings? You've never called me sister before." She tugged at the corner of her mouth, sounding a bit resentful. Victoria seemed inexplicably odd today. I said, "Weren't you the one who brought it up? If you hadn't, I wouldn't have even thought about it." The situation grew awkward. Suddenly, I remembered Victoria was younger than Emma, so I said, "Oh, by the way, next time you see her, you should call her sister. It's polite." This time, she didn't argue. She thought for a moment and nodded. "I really should call her sister." She carefully asked, "So are we, together?" I was speechless. Hadn't she just agreed earlier? So I replied, "Of course, didn't I already say I like being with you? Didn't you agree too?" After a while, Victoria pursed her lips and said, "But I don't want to be together like this." I was speechless. Was she messing with me? I responded, "Then leave." I turned away, no longer looking at her. The door closed and Victoria really left. I gritted my teeth, feeling angrier by the minute. I opened my phone and posted on social media, looking for a reliable young model, monthly arrangement negotiable, visible only to Victoria. Half an hour later, the door opened, and Victoria rushed into my arms. She sobbed, "Sincere, please choose me again, okay? I won't be willful anymore. I'll do whatever you want." Her voice was pitiful, but I pushed her away and said, "Victoria, I don't want to support you financially anymore." She replied, "I don't need your support. I can even support you. I actually have a bit of money." I was speechless. "I want to date you, not this kind of relationship between a sponsor and a lover. It's okay for bedroom role play, but dating should be more equal." She asked, "What did you say?" Was Victoria suddenly hard of hearing? I grabbed her shoulders and said seriously, "I said I want to be your boyfriend." She didn't speak and seemed a bit stunned. I awkwardly scratched my head and said, "Forget it if you don't want to." Getting rejected on my first confession, how awkward. Victoria came back to her senses, her eyes bright. She said, "I'm willing, 1,000,000 times willing." She happily hugged me tightly, half of her face buried in my chest, trembling as she said, "Sincere, I'm just too surprised. I never thought you'd want to be my boyfriend. But since you've chosen me, I'll be yours forever. You don't need to worry about her. I'll explain everything to her." I asked who. She said, "If anyone is to blame, blame me. I'm the one who seduced you. It's not your fault." I was speechless. What a mess. Who would blame her? I replied, "I really didn't do anything wrong." She said, "Of course, you're always right." She looked up at me, her eyes deepening, a warm and soft kiss. The room's light dimmed gradually, leaving only the moonlight seeping through the curtains, casting shadows on the floor in a chaotic pattern. Her skin turned pink, then a more alluring red, the rhythm synchronizing like waves crashing on the shore one after another until dawn broke. Victoria had been unusually happy lately, walking as if she had a spring in her step. But every time Emma was mentioned, there was a hint of guilt, as if she felt like an accomplice. Although I didn't know what happened, I decided to do something about it. The afternoon sun was bright, the amusement park filled with laughter. Victoria and I walked hand in hand, joyfully weaving through the crowd. I said, "Look, there's my sister, Emma." Emma stood by the fountain. I said, "Come on, let's go say hi." I eagerly pulled Victoria, ready to walk over, but in the next second, Victoria grabbed my sleeve and hid behind me. She said, "No, I'm not ready yet." She clung to me, unwilling to let me go, looking quite secretive. I said, "I'm not afraid. What are you afraid of?" Since Victoria agreed to date me, I had no intention of hiding from my family. I had seen James's social media post about heading to the amusement park, which is why I came. I wanted them to meet Victoria, hopefully putting in a good word for her in front of my parents. I said, "Come on, I can't wait." Victoria pursed her lips and said, I know you're anxious, but now isn't the best time. We'll talk about it later, okay? She looked at me worriedly, then shook her head with a complicated expression and said, "This kind of thing for a girl." When she mentioned the blow, it sounded pretty serious. "What the heck? What serious blow?" She continued, "Calm down first. We can't hurt her like this." I didn't get it. What hurt? Hurt what? As Victoria spoke, she kept sneaking glances at Emma. I rubbed my forehead, feeling like something shady was going on. I said, "Keep watching. I'll get you some bubble tea. What do you want?" She nodded. "I'll have it." I was speechless. At that moment, her eyes were only on Emma. My girlfriend might be a bit quirky, but I can deal with it. James walked over, and Emma naturally held his hand affectionately. Victoria was taken aback, and a wave of indescribable anger surged in her heart. "How dare she cheat on Sincere?" She rushed forward and slapped their hands apart, angrily scolding, "Emma, how dare you cheat on Sincere?" Both were startled by the sudden accusation. Emma asked, bewildered, "Aren't you Sincere's classmate?" Victoria thought, not a classmate, a girlfriend, the beloved third wheel. Her heart tightened, and her guilty conscience made her voice soften. She said, "Aren't you ashamed?" James asked, "Emma, what's going on?" He couldn't figure out the situation. The girl in front of him seemed ready to devour his girlfriend. Victoria quickly said, "She's a player. Don't be fooled by her." James stepped forward to explain, "Emma wouldn't lie to me. Are you misunderstanding something?" Victoria bit her lip and said, "Emma, don't hide behind him. If you have the guts to find a man, why, confetti filled the air as we gathered to congratulate this lady on her successful ascent in love. Cheers and roses." I was taken aback. The group chat didn't dissolve. Instead, a new ad popped up. "Miss Victoria now offers the perfect girlfriend training. Not for, but for just. Our professional team will safeguard your love and eliminate any rivals. Join the love defense team today." Victoria pondered for a moment before decisively making a payment. Even after securing her position, she couldn't slack off. Witnessing all this, I mused, the world has gone mad, and how easily women's money is parted. To have my parents accept Victoria, I planned to introduce her gradually, starting with invitations to social events. Coincidentally, there was an upcoming party hosted by the Liu family, who recently returned from abroad. Their daughter, almost my age, was already a famous writer with several acclaimed works. My father remarked, "Sincere, look at her, then look at yourself. Aren't you ashamed?" He sipped his tea with pride. It reminded me of Victoria, same surname, different fate. Before the party started, Victoria was nowhere to be found. Just as I was about to look for her, my parents called me over. "Sincere, come meet your Uncle Will and Aunt Dia." Uncle Will seemed oddly familiar. He laughed. "Sincere, don't you remember? You used to ride on my back when you were little." I was speechless. What an occasion. He paused, then continued, "Victoria, come here." My breath hitched in disbelief. Victoria didn't seem surprised. Aunt Diana teased, "Victoria, do you remember always saying you'd marry Sincere when you grew up?" Victoria replied, "I remember." She looked at me, her gaze gentle and full of undisguised affection. My mom was grinning ear to ear, thinking, "If Sincere ends up with such a wealthy woman, I can indulge in my whims." She said, "I think they're a perfect match." As the music began, I asked, "Miss Victoria, may I have this dance?" She replied, "It would be my honor." In the center of the party, the music flowed like water, and our dance steps were harmonious and graceful. I sighed and asked, "When did you set your sights on me?" Victoria's gaze never wavered. She replied, "From the moment you walked into the bar." I asked, "So you pretended to be a model to deceive me?" She pouted slightly. "You mistook me for a model. I was actually the owner, but I feared you'd reject me if you knew." I nodded. "Don't let it happen again." "Sincere?" I asked. "What?" She said, "Thank you for choosing to support me.